Kia ora and welcome along to the Met Service Severe Weather Update for today, Friday the 18th of August. Now, as we go through the rest of today, things are pretty clear and settled, but it's that area of cloud you can see out towards the west, which is set to bring some stronger winds and wetter weather back towards many parts of New Zealand as we head in towards the weekend. So as you can see, as we go through the rest of today, high pressure sits over us, things generally are fairly settled. That low pressure you can see in the Tasman Sea, as that runs towards us, that throws a fair bit of wet weather on towards those western facing coasts, and also those strengthening winds as well, those isobars really close together, a good indication of strong winds. You can see as we head through the nighttime Saturday to Sunday, that wet weather moves on towards the North Island. So we have some watches and warnings out for western parts of those regions as well as we head through Saturday and Sunday. So we are looking at some pretty heavy rainfall, especially on those western facing coasts. There's a warning out for Westland. Could find those rivers and streams rising rapidly. Some damage to things like power lines not out of the question, some slips and those kind of activities, and also some hazardous driving conditions. It's also set to be pretty windy as well. You can see the bigger arrows showing the stronger winds, and on the map, those darker purples showing the strongest winds as well, about the tops of the ranges. That really strong northeasterly wind around the likes of the Fiordland coast is set to be an issue, and as the winds turn to be more northwesterly, we'll find some stronger winds across and towards places like Canterbury as well towards the end of the day on Saturday. So we are going to find there's some more windy and wet weather in store, which again could cause damage to things like trees and power lines, and also make driving conditions rather hazardous as well. So as I say, we have got plenty of severe weather watches and warnings already in place. Now the warnings are for places like Fiordland, Westland and up towards Mount Taranaki, Monga, but we have also got some watches as well across other parts of the South Island and even across those western parts of the North Island as well. We'll start off down in the south with that warning for strong winds for Fiordland, particularly around the fjords, with that northeasterly squeezing down the coast as we head through the daytime on Saturday, from the morning time right to around about 4 o'clock or so in the afternoon, and gusts perhaps 130 kilometres an hour. As we head further northwards, we've also got this warning out for the heavy rainfall about the ranges of west and south of Otira. But again, we could find a fair bit of wet weather through there, 70 to 90 millimetres of rainfall, some pretty intense rain as well, and perhaps even some thunderstorms through the afternoon on Saturday as well. We've also got watches in terms of wind around that western coast. Those are those northeasterlies ahead of this feature from 9 a.m. till 4 p.m. But on the other side, once that feature runs through and the winds turn more northwesterly, we could find some stronger winds through the likes of Canterbury as well. Gusts perhaps an 80, 90 kilometres an hour, and those winds reaching at gale force at times. It's also worth saying it's going to be a windy old day around the likes of Banks Peninsula. Gusts here 80 to 90 kilometres an hour. We could find perhaps 100 odd kilometre gusts around that western coast. So well worth keeping an eye on the forecast as we head through Saturday. It's not just those areas. As we head further northwards, we've also got a watch out for wind around the likes of Tasman and Nelson pretty much throughout the afternoon on Saturday. Also watches for rainfall through Bulla and those western parts of Tasman as well, west of Motueka, and that's that rainfall as we go through Saturday as well. Some heavy falls of rain through there. And again, with those rather blustery winds as we head through daytime, winds perhaps gale force or even severe gale in the most exposed areas, and gusts 80, 90 kilometres an hour are not out of the question at all. For the North Island, the area we're really looking at are those higher parts of the North Island, those central hill country from, say, the eastern side of Taranaki up towards Waitomo and across towards Taihape. That's where we're going to find that wettest weather as we head towards the end of the day on Saturday, through into towards the early hours of, through into towards Sunday, I should say, right the way through. And there is that heavy rain warning for Taranaki Monga itself, for the mountain there, and we could find 100 to 140 millimetres of rainfall, and again some fairly heavy bursts of rain, especially overnight Saturday in towards Sunday. So well worth keeping an eye on the forecast. As we head through Sunday, you can see this rainfall moves across places like the Eastern Bay of Plenty, perhaps in towards the Coromandel. Well worth keeping an eye on the situation there. And then as this low pressure moves out towards the eastern side, we could find wrapping around that some stronger winds around that eastern coast, and still feeling a fair bit of wet weather in towards those northern parts of Hawke's Bay and up and towards the southern parts of Gisborne, Tairafti, around the Mahia Peninsula. So well worth keeping an eye on the forecast through here as well. The good news for many of us though, the high pressure building over and things much more settled as we head through next week. But we have got a rather windy and wet weekend ahead of us. That's it from me. There's more at metservice.com.